my soccer universe. Man, that hurt. I'm shooting this video pretty much 24 hours after kickoff of the semifinal between LASK and Wolfsberg. And it's not only that I had a full days of work that I'm shooting this really late. I had to put quite some perspective on that one. This was a gut punch. This really felt bad. Losing in the semifinal to Wolfsberg, I knew it's gonna be a tough opponent. I thought we have a decent chance, and you were leading for such a long time. Probably a little bit too passive. When it went to penalties, I already knew it's not gonna happen. And it's the third time that I see LASK in a penalty shootout in the stadium live. It's the third time that they're losing, and I can rattle off statistics and everything. Now it just fits as being a fan of this club that you didn't win this one. And it fits even better. It fits even better that if you would have reached the final, you pretty much would have won this final because you play against Hartberg. No, I don't want to say anything against Hartberg. Hartberg is a team that has played us tough, and I think it would be a challenge. However, when I think about the chance of winning the cup when you play against Austria Vienna or play against Hartberg, I mean, this would have been the best chance you had in years. Reminds me of the Corona season when we had in 2020 the semi-final against Salzburg. We just had beaten Salzburg in the league in Salzburg, and then it was kind of a no-show. And if you would have played in the final, you would have played against Austria Lucena, a second division team, and you would very likely have won this one because at that time LASK were at least the second best team in Austria. So, you know, it just fits being the fan of this club that this didn't work out, and so 6 years of wait continue, unfortunately. It also means that you can barely salvage this season. Yes, winning the bottom group would be a good thing to do. However, then you need to also win the playoff. That's gonna be a steep climb, I gotta say. On the other side, I think for the weekend, this was a gut punch. And it was also perfectly set up. I mean, it was throughout, it was really nice evening weather. Great tifo, everything really nicely set up. My daughter, my little daughter sitting next to me, she was so into this game, totally into it. I cannot tell you the bitter tears she cried. I even told her before we went to penalties. Unfortunately, I'm afraid we're gonna lose this penalty shootout again. And ahead of the penalty shootout, she was already crying. Kind of lifted up, you know, we have not lost yet. And then after the penalty shootout, it was just, she was tears, and I just hugged her. Tears came also on my butt. This was tough. This was tough to swallow. What really annoyed me the most though is I think they battled hard. Maybe they were a little bit too much on a defensive, and we'll talk about that game in a little bit deeper. But then the negative comments coming from the fans on social media. I know you shouldn't go on social media, but totally uncalled for. I think the team really gave it all. They played well, were defensively sound. Yes, I would have wished a little bit more counterattacks. It felt like the connection between defense and offense was not really there. However, this thought that this was only Wolfsberg, I mean, look at that Wolfsberg team. They have some really good players. I think that Wolfsberg this season have a better squad than LASK do. And so battling them that hard and staying in the game and having a tactic where you score early and then you kind of want to see it out, and you were actually defensively solid, I cannot really blame them, except I would have liked to see a few more counterattacks launched and be a little bit more dangerous. But this whole thing that now everything is shit and so on, sometimes not only this club is annoying me, also the fan base is so annoying me. I always have the feeling that we have fans like Bayern Munich or Real Madrid that expect the best, but you don't have any titles to show for it. It's so detached. That annoys me as well. I give you my rundown of the two matches, and then I also want to look at the implications, not only for the cup final, which is, from a neutral's point of view, a really cool one. If I was not involved in the semi-final, I think this would be the dream final. Though I think the Austrian Football Federation will not like it because the fan bases of either of the two winners is not that great, so it will be kind of an empty final. But that's beside the point. I think it's in that sense, it's really cool. But we also have to look at the implications for the league, because this has also some wrinkle in there for the European spots. So The semi-final Linz was definitely the pick of the bunch, because those are two teams that you could imagine meeting on relatively level terms. Wolfsberg have been one of the sensations of this season, and LASK is a team that everyone says is underperforming, but are kind of finding their footing. And so this is how the game started. And Wolfsberg, when I just looked at the lineup, there's so many players in there that I find really dangerous. I did not have the best of feelings, but I knew that there's a good chance with a home crowd, and I have to say I was a little bit disappointed. It was only 12,900. I know that the scheduling probably didn't favor a bigger crowd. Still, the crowd was into it, was fully there, and it all went wild after a little bit more than 4 minutes, when the first counterattack of Wolfsburg actually had some control. First counterattack is run via Flecker, who goes down, but the ball is still live, and Maxi Entro puts it in. Wild celebrations. However, what followed then is that LASK was sitting back. Wolfsberg puts on the pressure, however barely created any chances or even shots on goal, and that continued into the second half. I remember a shot by Baller on the outside of the net. I remember a huge chance by Markus Pink after a cross where he just put it over the bar. However, before that, I think it was again Flecker through on goal and being tackled to the ground. To me, this was a last man offense. Referee Hameta making some really curious decisions in the second half and also in overtime that I think did not really favor LASK. But also what did not favor LASK is that you could see that Lang, who had been a vertical threat, especially in the first half, he had ran himself ragged, and the same thing is true for Entrup. And when you then bring on Schul and Adeniran, I mean, Adeniran was the threat as well, but Schul, I think, was not really in play. However, despite all that, I have to say it looked overall rather comfortable. And then the equalizer came when an Omic free kick comes in and Mustafa fails to pick up his man, and Vaivo heads it in via the inside of the post, 83rd minute. I cannot tell you, this felt already like a gut punch. But then actually, for the rest of the second half, for those 10 minutes, LASK actually had a little bit more of control and actually had immediately a header by Danek that went wide, and then also very late on after a corner kick, Andrade heads it onto the crossbar. It goes into overtime. I want to say first overtime period, a bit more LASK. Second overtime period, a whole lot of nothing from either side. It went to penalties, and you have the penalty shootout in front of the home fans, which is never a good sign. I know it is celebrated as a victory when you have the one. It's never a good sign. Too much pressure off the opponent as well. You at least go first. You convert the first one through Jovicic. However, Omic also converts, and then Zia is a relatively well taken penalty, however, via the inside of the post and out. First gut punch, and then Alessandro Schoff steps up, and Laval is there. Laval was in the corner for each of the penalties, but it goes in. Daniek keeps it level. Koicek, same story as with the Schoff penalty. It's 3-2 for Wolfsberg. And then Adeniran, poorly taken penalty, easily saved, and Tierno Ballo sends Wolfsberg to the first ever cup final. And yeah, tears followed. And sensational, in that cup final, Wolfsberg will take on Hartberg, who also qualify for the first time for the cup final. And this one went also as you would have expected. Austria Vienna having tons of possession, even having early chances. I mean, the biggest one was a really bad back pass from Hartberg into Fitz, who runs clear on the goalie. However, the angle gets a little bit too tight, and so Salinger can save. But there were the chances for Austria Vienna there to take a lead early on. However, they do not. And the longer the game went, the more the Hartberg defense set tight, and then they score in the second half in the 54th minute. Absolutely brilliant team goal where Salinger seemingly almost loses the ball, playing it out from the back, but then quick passing movements, and in the end, via the right side, the ball comes to Avdiay, who plays it into Mijic, who holds up the defenders, plays it back to Avdiay, who from a similar narrow angle as Fitz had in the first half, actually makes the goal, and it's 1-0 for Hartberg. And honestly, there was almost nothing coming from Austria Vienna. That is an absolute stunner, because this is an Austria Vienna team that was really riding high, but they could not break down this Hartberg defense. There were only free kicks and something, but almost nothing. The frustration then even unloaded itself after the final whistle, when Alexander Dragovic really went at the referee and got sent off with a straight red card. He's missing now 2 games. This came totally unexpected, and so we have Hartberg in the final against Wolfsberg in Klagenfurt. a final no one would have predicted. It is also a final that, while Wolfsberg is closer to Klagenfurt, I think if you would put this final in Graz, it would be almost equal distance. It would be better placed there. I know it will be in Klagenfurt played. I'm thinking there will be some Hartberg fans coming. However, I think this will be a final that will not have more than 5,000 spectators, honestly, because these are not two teams that draw in a lot of crowds. Maybe Wolfsberg will have a home field advantage because it is played in their province, however, in the stadium of their regional rival, although I don't think that the rivalry is all that big there either. I think it's also interesting to look at the implications of that cup final on the league. The winner of that cup final will get a Europa League spot. I don't think that Wolfsberg will make it into the top 3. So that also means, should Wolfsberg win it, then the third place team or the best place team outside of the top 2 will go into the Conference League. And then the next place team will host a 2-legged playoff final for the Conference League spot, which will then be played between the 7th and the 8th place teams, so the top 2 in the qualification round. Should Hartberg win it, then it gets a little bit more interesting because Hartberg is in the Europa League, and then the 4th place team would host that playoff final for the Conference League, and it's then in a one-legged affair between the 5th and the 7th place team. So rather complicated, but rather interesting. Upcoming round, LASK host GRK. I'll be there. I think this will be a way to kind of get together over it. I would expect a win, although after this tough loss, that might not be a simple game. It also is a game that means a whole lot more to GRK than it does for LASK, so we also have to state that. We have Hartberg taking on Tirol, probably celebrating a lot, so maybe Tirol will get the points. The round already gets started on Friday with a pretty big game, Sturm Graz against Rapid. Sturm Graz need the points, as do Rapid, so this is pretty big. And then we have Austria Vienna against Wolfsberg. Yeah, this could have been a cup final, but it is not. Austria Vienna, I'm really curious how they will deal after this loss, similar to LASK. So yeah, again, from a neutral's perspective, that cup final is great in a way, because it's two real outsiders, two first-timers in the final. However, from a purely LASK perspective, this still hurts so much. I really think if we would have made it to the final, we would have won the darn thing, and this would have been the best thing. I want for once in my life to see my team win a national trophy, not win the second league or something. I want a national trophy. I guess I will have to wait longer. Has been 60 years. Fortunately, I'm not alive for that long. My father has seen it. My father has witnessed it, the 2 titles. I really hope it will be. I have a little bit consolation coming from my little daughter, the one that cried so much and said, "Daddy, it's gonna happen. We gonna witness that." So there's some hoping. There's a whole lot of life left as well. So there's some hoping that we will finally get a title sometime. And that cup title is really something that has been eluding us. Honestly, it's just crazy how we are not winning a cup title so far. In any case, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. I'll talk to you soon with more things in my Austrian Bundesliga universe. Bye! Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!